Hello, IGN Live. How are you doing today? Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm really excited for this next one. We are doing a Rewind Theater, and it is very special to me. So yeah, welcome to the special edition of Rewind Theater featuring Killing Floor 3, the newest installment in the iconic action horror series that's co-op. I'm so excited to get into the trailers, so please join me in welcoming Bryan Wynia, Studio Creative Director at Tripwire Interactive. Hey guys. Bryan, thank you so much for joining us. Now, without giving too much away, what are you most excited for people to see in Killing Floor 3?
Well, thank you for having us. I am a kid of the 80s and 90s. I grew up on a steady diet of like rubber monster movies and violent comics and whatnot. So there's a lot of monsters and weird, creepy things that you see in here. I don't want to spoil it because there's some new stuff in case you haven't seen the trailer now. But you'll see some stuff in there that we spent a lot of time developing that I think you guys will enjoy.
All right. You guys ready? Let's check out the trailer. Roll the clip.
Ready for a bit of fun then?
Wow, Bryan, that was so cool. It was jam-packed with a ton of details, so without further ado, let's break it down. You ready?
Good, yeah, thank you.
All right, so let's check out this first clip where right off the bat, we get the Tripwire logo as well as a little tidbit about the locations that we are going to be exploring in this game. Let's check out that first clip.
Absolutely. In general, just one of the things you guys will notice with most of the clips that you guys will see today is like we try to hide stuff for the future. Just alluding to what could be coming next, so that's really important to us. Like even in this first shot here, obviously you see Tripwire, you see it's pre-alpha, we're still, obviously developing the game, but we want to show you what we've been up to. And you're going to see, this kind of like slightly futuristic military base that this Z outbreak is happening at, but you also see an American flag. So you're starting to allude to where this location might possibly be, something slightly new for the franchise. But once again, every frame we're trying to hide something for you guys to allude to the big picture and what could come next.
All right, in this next clip, there's not much hiding in this next clip because we see crawlers all over the place. They're on the walls, they're on the ceiling. Let's check out the clip. Talk to me about how it sort of works to develop, this new way for crawlers to get around the map.
Yeah, so these things are pretty disgusting. I have pretty intense arachnophobia. So when we were working with our team, obviously we've wanted to have crawler on the walls. Like if you guys are a fan of the franchise, it's something we've tried to do since the beginning. And it was fairly difficult, but we have a really talented team and they have it working. And it's pretty terrifying now to be, normally fighting Zeds, you see a few things kind of side by side and you shoot their heads. But now when they're crawling on the walls and on the ceilings, it just makes that much more difficult and kind of pushes that action horror vibe that we're going for. But yeah, and they're just absolutely disgusting looking. You'll see a close-up shot here in a second of it. The goal was to basically kind of cross a serial killer and a spider, put it in a blender, and pour it out. That's kind of like Horzine's thought process on making a bioengineered monster. Yeah, it's not ethical. at all.
Let's check them out in this next clip so we get that closer look. Because I also want to call out, there's like a lot of hairs on these guys. They look creepy, but cool. They're terrifying. In this next clip, we get a sort of look at the sort of like weird bulb
It's
thing
weird.
they
It's
have
gross.
in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah, talk to me about these guys.
So even this, we have a really talented concept art and creature art department. And for me, like I said, being a kid of the 80s and 90s and having this kind of obsession with monsters is really important that we made something that felt memorable and iconic. We wanted to obviously tip our hat to the previous design, but like how would this creature have been evolved over that time period? So you'll notice it doesn't have one eyeball. It has like a cluster of many little eyeballs in its skull. You want something to look gross, just put little hairs on it. Like if it's wet and hairy, it's usually going to be pretty disgusting, so they did that.
Love it. Up next, we get a return of one of the iconic enemies. We see the Husk right here with a new jetpack. Talk to me about the redesign of the Husk for this game.
Yeah, so as I was saying before, in previous Killing Floor games, a lot of the enemies were very similar heights, somewhat similar scales, all very humanoid. Our VP, Alan Wilson, used to talk about the cone of danger. And the cone of danger is fairly small, like you could kind of scan across a crowd and all these heads were at these different levels. But now that cone of danger has increased dramatically with crawlers being on the walls, Husks having the ability to kind of propel and jetpack around. There's some really terrifying sequences, like the building that you actually see behind them right there. They can jump up on that and kind of flank players and things like that. So when you're playing the game, you have to keep your head on a swivel or you're going to be overwhelmed really quickly.
Yeah, they might pop up behind you, and then you're going to be in real trouble.
Yeah.
But up next, we get to see a look at a returning character, Mr. Foster. Talk to me about bringing him back to Killing Floor 3.
So this was obviously a fan favorite character, and it was pretty much the first thing that we established when we knew we were Killing Floor 3. We knew it was going to be called Killing Floor 3, and we knew Mr. Foster was going to be there. You guys are going to learn a ton about him more in the very near future, like how old is he? How did he survive? Is he a clone? I don't want to give away too much just yet, but it's awesome to have him back. It's really exciting to be able to play as him. He has a really unique set of weapons. He is that kind of classic commando perk evolved into this specialist version of Mr. Foster. He's really enjoyable to use, his kind of like assault style weapons and just rip through Zeds.
Now, in this next clip, we get a glimpse at the weapons for Killing Floor 3. I always love the designs for them. Talk to me about how you sort of take weapons that are maybe in the real world and then adapt them to this sort of like near future aspect.
Absolutely. So Tripwire is really known for their weapons and their guns. And even though some of these guns are like near future, like what would a Scar look like 70 years from now? What would a particular bullpup look like 70 years from now? Just like our creatures, our weapons, our locations, we base them on reality, right? So if you're using a gun that would feel like a Scar, what would it feel like just in the near future? Or like when you look at the crawler and you get that sense of a spider, or you look at that gun and you get the sense of like a stoner LMG, it's based on something real. So even though it's something new we're introducing to characters, they're able to relate to it much more and find that enjoyable experience or slightly terrifying experience when it comes to an enemy.
Awesome. In this next clip, we get a look at the Scrake as well, whose mask now covers their entire face, and this chainsaw looks crazier than ever. Talk to me about the design process. Am I getting some tones of Jason Voorhees in here?
Yeah, absolutely. Once again, like kid of the 80s, I have probably more knowledge of Jason Voorhees than a 41-year-old should. But, you know, there's elements of Jason, Texas Chainsaw. We're very big horror fans, and we want to tip our hat to some of our favorite franchises, the things that inspired us, and kind of sharing those with the new generation. The Scrake has always been really interesting, but there were classic things that we wanted to see. We knew you guys wanted to see the Scrake pointing, so we put that in here, right? It's something classic from the franchise. It's something that he's been doing, and when he points at you with a chainsaw the size of you, it definitely makes you feel pretty intimidated. He can get in your face very quickly now. The thing when you see a lot of like these kind of like glowing emissive elements on there, that is us communicating to you as a player, this is a threat, you should focus on this, you should target it. Like you can actually shoot that face mask off and expose this kind of giant critical zone on his face and take him out. If you saw our Scrake reveal video, you see a close-up of kind of that terrifying look. But even his chainsaw, like if he's really hassling you, why don't you use your weapons to disable what he's attacking you with so you can get the upper hand?
Absolutely. Now, of course, one of the things that's my favorite thing about the Killing Floor series is the gore that's included in it. In this next clip, we get a sort of a montage of different gore elements, including a pretty gruesome head stab. Let's roll that clip so we can check it out. Talk to me about how gore has evolved in Killing Floor 3, because, I mean, this just looks sick.
Yeah, I hope there's like no children in the audience. I know we were like age gating this, so if you snuck in Macaulay Culkin or whatever, I'm sorry. Yeah, obviously gore is a huge staple of the franchise. For us, gore in our game should be a celebration. It's an over-the-top experience. Like, when you see gore in our game, we want you to be like, oh shit, that's awesome, and not like, oh god, I'm gonna be sick, right? It's a way that we punctuate the action and the horror that we're doing in the game. All of the Zeds are built up with a variety of different meshes, so you can dismember them, you can shoot their face apart, their head explodes in multiple different ways. It's all about player impact. You have this big, giant, powerful weapon, and what is it doing to that enemy? Some of the Zeds now you might actually see later in a clip, but like if you shoot their legs out, they'll still be crawling at you and things like that. So really make sure that you are tearing them apart piece by piece. Some things that you'll even see is when you shoot a character, if it's like a smaller caliber, like if you use your sidearm like a pistol, it'll punch a small hole and you can kind of see their rib cage and internal organs and guts and kind of things like that. Once again, it's just really trying to communicate to players this impactful use of our weapons and that celebration of violence.
Well, I need to see some of the dismemberment, so let's check out this next clip to get a little bit more of that montage of gruesomeness because, oh my god, I can't wait to play and actually get to experience all these moments for myself. Let's roll that next clip. So we see like heads popping here, legs going all over the place. You see like an arm falling off the side here. Talking about how to go about designing the different ways that sort of the dismemberment works within the game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, that guy's not going to be okay. I just want to make that super clear. And all of you are probably on some sort of watch list as we like dissect this super violent video. So welcome to the club. It's really important, once again, that it's about impact. So if I'm using a small caliber weapon, is it shooting off just their arm? Like, you can kind of see through the giant pile of blood. There's like rib cage and scapula sticking out. One of the things on top of dismemberment even is persistent blood. It's something that we've had in the franchise. Our environment team looks at our worlds like a blank canvas, so that when you're done with a wave and there's just blood everywhere, you literally have painted the world with the blood of your enemies. And seeing that splash all over the place, once again, it just kind of communicates that action and horror that took place in that space. So yeah, it's pretty disgusting, pretty gross. We have to look at some wild videos, and the team is sick and twisted, and I love it.
Well, it's definitely very satisfying to do it in the game. In this next clip, talking about satisfying, you talked about how weapons are a big part of Tripwire's sort of legacy. This moment right here is one of my favorites in the trailer. You sort of see them slowing down the barrel roll with the tips of their fingers. This isn't even me like pointing anything out like in particular. It's just me gushing over Tripwire animations. Congratulations. Talk to me about how you go about sort of staging these moments with the different inspects and things like that.
You just made our team's day, so thank you very much. Yeah, our animation team is wildly dedicated. Once again, even though this might not be a real-world grenade launcher, we want to base it on something that you could imagine would be a real thing, something that feels impactful, something that feels powerful. We look at real-world weapons, we kind of ground that animation, the movement, the functionality into it. Every weapon has a series of different weapon checks. And this was just one of those moments that when we were doing an animation review and we saw this like bit of character where our specialist here was kind of reloading that gun and kind of prepping before he was going to go in. It just had so much character. It showed a level of fidelity, a level of attention to detail that our team really shines at with our weapons, and we were just instantly like, that's in the trailer. This kind of fun behind the scenes fact, this was the very first approved shot for the actual trailer. I'm glad you picked up on it, because literally all of us were just like, put it in. That's exactly what we need to do. And every gun has this level of detail. I think there's anywhere from 3 to 4 various weapon checks for different guns, everything from checking your mag, pulling a bolt back, or, you know, kind of taking joy in spinning the barrel of a giant grenade launcher.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you included it because it's definitely for me. So thank you for doing that. In this next clip, we're actually going to get a look at, we've seen a lot of very wide open areas so far in the trailer. But in this next one, we get a lot more up close and personal with a lot of the Zeds right here. You see this sort of cramped space. You see the shadows all over the place. How do you go about designing a level like this, and what are the sort of details that you put into it?
Yeah, so a lot of our maps are designed for gameplay, right? And for us, we now have the ability to have crawlers on the wall. And before, you guys saw kind of like what's called broken camera footage, where it's all in-game, but we actually take the camera and kind of move it around like a film director and kind of show you things that we're working on. But this, is gameplay from a player's point of view interacting with these Zeds. So seeing those Zeds in a very kind of tight, very intimate space where you can't constantly backpedal from them, and they're climbing on the ceilings, they're on the walls. This was another shot that it was just really important that we really suggest you guys watch it a few times because there's a lot of layered things on there. You see a new gun. You can see the level of fidelity, like in the shadows. You literally see the hairs in the shadows over there, which I didn't even know we had that until we were capturing this, and it was really cool to be able to see that. You see persistent blood. But once again, it's really about that gameplay. It's the crawlers. Having a map where you go from open spaces with a wave of Zeds and then going to something more tight and intimate, once again, it just kind of contributes to this action horror blend that we are trying to create for players.
Awesome. Moving on to the next clip, we get a look at some of the other body deformations, status effects like burning from this Molotov throw. Talk to me about programming those into the game. What's the sort of idea there?
Yeah, so it's like an affliction, right? Like if I'm using a flamethrower, and you're going to see more of it there, and we have some great screenshots that are coming out to support all this. It's not just shooting things and their heads popping or shooting their arms off, but if I use a flamethrower, catching something on fire, seeing it burn, there is a variety of different types of afflictions that your weapons and elements can do to enemies, and we're really excited to show you more of them. I think later we're going to see some electricity coursing through some enemies as well, so yeah, it's just a different way to tear the enemies apart.
Now, this next clip over here, we get a very, very cool thing that I'm so excited to talk about. We get a little bit more of this montage of bloodiness, exploding, lighting people on fire. That electric trap you mentioned, that head pop was sick, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's that was a fun one to do. It feels weird saying it over and over again, but shooting things in the head in our game feels really good. I hope you all experience it. I would love to shoot monsters in the face with you. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. But then...
Yeah, so this is the moment I want to talk about, the zip line. Talk to me about the different sort of modes of traversal, movement, and why you sort of implemented these in the game.
Yeah, so this is pretty big. Like previously in Killing Floor, movement was somewhat restricted. But as we started to increase what Zeds could do to you, I have no problem challenging you guys as players. Like, we should make really intense Zeds, really intense threats. But we have to give you the opportunity to actually fight back. Like, Killing Floor is at its best when you have like 2 rounds left and you're literally like wiping the sweat off your brow. But I can't tell you how many times that like a zip line has essentially saved my life, right? Like, we'll talk about who you see at the end. He's chased me a few times, and I've had to hop on this guy and get out of there. Or I might have a teammate's in trouble, and being able to deploy a zip line and get over to them. It just is like, if they're flying and they're crawling, we're going to need you vaulting. We're going to need you sliding. There's a dash that you'll even get to kind of see later, because now with certain enemies having projectile attacks, we have to give you not only guns, but some other tools in your arsenal to be able to kind of combat these enemies.
I love it. Yeah, let's check out this next clip because it's definitely something that I was not expecting to be included. You see this sort of...
you get blasted by a Husk right there. That's always intense.
Right here, we get a drone. What's that all about?
Yeah, so this is Mr. Foster's gadget. Each one of our specialists has a unique gadget that is unique to their gameplay. It was really important to us that each specialist had a really defined role on the battlefield. So Mr. Foster is that classic commando. If you like using various assault rifles, LMGs, SCARs, things like that, this is your character. You guys obviously saw the firebug. If you like setting things on fire, you like using flamethrowers, Molotovs, she's the character for you. And once again, each one of them has their own unique gadget. And the way we kind of describe these internally, it's basically your oh shit moment, right? So at this point, you see Mr. Foster about to be overwhelmed. You just mash that button, and it's essentially going to kind of give you that opportunity to be that hero, save your teammates, save yourself, and just escape. Once again, powerful weapons, various ways of traversals, tools and gadgets so that you can stand a chance against these enemies.
Yeah, it seems like the enemies have really evolved a lot, and so you need to be able to match that some way, somehow.
Absolutely.
And these are all the tools at your disposal. I love it. Speaking of enemies that have been leveled up, I got so excited when I saw this. In this next clip, we get a look at the Flesh Pound making their way back and killing floor 3. They just look so terrifying. I'm excited to see them back. Am I right, guys? That's so cool. And now they have like a whip for their arms?
Yeah, well, it's like when you already saw the original Flesh Pound, you know, the team for KF1 and KF2 and many of them still on KF3, it was already pretty intense. So it's like, how do you take this giant guy with meat grinders and make it that much more intense? And it's like, well, let's just kind of get him right in your face. And where the Scrake might actually run you down and try to saw you in half with this kind of giant chainsaw auger, we're just like, these should essentially giant whips and kind of maces that he can kind of smash on top of you. There's a lot of things to break down even in this kind of section of the trailer. New gun, look at critical zones, you're gonna see the slide, lots of little things here for all of our fans. So please take the time, check it out, and see kind of all those subtle details that we're putting into it. But yeah, he's a bit intense to fight. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Yeah.
And we wanted kind of players to think like, oh, that's the Flesh Pound. It's like their biggest bad guy, but you'll see where we kind of end the trailer.
Yeah, little do they know that up next we get a look at this absolute monstrosity that I just need to know more about. It's like a shark tank buster sword thing?
Yeah, I mean, maybe there was a little bit of...
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Maybe there was a little bit of man-eater left in the tank. I've always liked sharks. I don't know. No, honestly, the kind of the creative pitch for this is when we start to design a new enemy for the game, we try to think about it the way that Horzine, as these are all engineered bioweapons, like they view these like a product, right? Like how would they build it? And for, you know, if the crawler is basically a serial killer and a spider mixed into a blender, this is essentially a silverback gorilla and an M1's Abram tank. This is what Horzine would sell to various individuals in the world if they wanted to start a war, right? So being able to fight against these things, it's intense. I don't want to spoil too much, but we wanted to show you guys, you've seen Reimagined, you've seen returning classic Zeds, but we wanted to show you something new. And this is just literally the tip of the spear, kind of no pun intended, don't get stabbed by that giant thing. And even in this shot, there's hidden stuff, like there's other weapons on him besides a giant blade, so... Sorry, it might be a bit intense. I've died by it a lot.
I mean, I'm excited just to get to experience being in that a part of that fight because it looks absolutely terrifying and it'll definitely tear my head off a couple times. Now, right after this, we do get a look at the sort of key art. You've talked to me backstage about how you guys love to hide stuff all over the place. What might people not notice? You know, aside from obviously the wish list now, which you can go wish list it now, what else might people not notice in this key art?
Yeah, so we have a community out there that loves doing breakdowns of our various videos. You guys know who you are. You guys, we very much watch your videos. We very much enjoy them. Like I said, every frame we are trying to give the player more information about the game. These are the weapons that you're using. These are the enemies that you're fighting. But when you guys have watched our Zed reveal videos, we've kind of hinted at what the next Zed might possibly be. In this piece of key art, there are things you guys have not seen yet. So everything we're putting out, there is some sort of hint for the future. So I won't totally spoil it, but in that wave of Zeds and pile of blood, there are some classic returning friends, and also some kind of new horrors on the horizon as well.
I love it. Bryan, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody give it up for Bryan.
Thank you, guys.
I can't wait to join Nightfall and mow down hordes of Zeds. But before we go, we have a special clip.
Yeah, here's another kind of fan favorite, the bloat.
That looked absolutely delicious. I can't wait to experience that for myself. Guys, you can all wishlist Killing Floor 3 right now. It's coming to PlayStation 5, Xbox Series consoles, and PC via Steam and the Epic Store. And remember, for all things Killing Floor 3, keep it locked to IGN.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you so much. That was awesome. Appreciate it.